Now, the vetting process itself, that was when I'd come to Albania. This was sort of starting, and I mean, to put it politely, it was a bit of a mess, like the actual process. I mean, the number of judicial members that resigned or were fired. I mean, that was the point of it, but it sort of, I mean, it brought the system to its knees. We had non-functioning institutions. We have backlogs that we still have today, you know, in courts. I have a case against someone in appeal, and it's been there since 2019, you know. There are still problems. Was this part of the plan? Were we expecting things to be that sort of problematic? And when we look today, do you think we are where we should be?
I think it was really important, and it's really important to be very realistic. The mess that judiciary was before the reform was far larger.
Yes, yeah.
And it was a kind of a mess that belonged only to a very privileged group of people who were abusing basically everybody else. And the first thing I did together with my colleagues, and in particular, the American ambassador at the time, where we forged a fantastic partnership, EU and US, was to, again, go around and talk to people. And I understood something that was actually the only thing that scared me. And it was this fear to hope. People are afraid. We're afraid to hope.
They don't want to be let down.
Change. Exactly.
Yeah.
I think there was so much hope and so many times when they were let down that I thought, you know, this cannot fail. This has to succeed. First, because it's the only way Albania will move on to the negotiation path to the EU. I mean, it was clear. But second thing is because people need to, just the citizens of Albania need to get this trust that the institutions will do their job. And I remember the opinion polls at the time, and you would always have NATO, US, EU at the top with, you know, 80%, 90%, etc. And then judiciary getting 2 or 3%.
Yeah.
And that was just, I mean, it was terrifying.
Yeah,
it was sad. And it was clear that something was so profoundly wrong.
Yes.
That it had to change. So when you ask me whether there was a success, I saw some latest opinion polls. And to me, it's really, in a way, nothing short of a miracle on a trust level, how many people trust, especially the special prosecution. So, yes, I think, and I always say it was worth every second, it was worth everything to do it. And you cannot expect something that was not existent or was existent in a very wrong form to be changed into something functional in a very short or a very tidy way. And a decision, and I think it was absolutely the right decision. There was a decision to start from the top. Because, you know, one of the key things about this was credibility. And if the reform didn't start from the top, I don't think it would have been credible, because by the time, you know, that the vetting process would come to the top, many maneuvering would have happened to spare those who were responsible. So this is why there was a period where things were not as functional as they would have been in the normal circumstances. And also, let's be honest, there was a lot of political or underground movement to slow it down and etc. So it was a very interesting process where at the very beginning, I think some of the people at the top politically were not actually paying attention to the details. You know, they were not reading the small script. They were even lazy, or they believed, it's another blah, blah. And, you know, in the end, we will do as we please.
And now they're all in prison.
When they realized, and now when they realized that actually this was happening, then they started, I mean, a terrible war, or how you want to call it, against it, try to slow it down, try to discredit, try to kill, try to derail, try to
But we still
do
have
whatever they
that
could.
now. You know, we've had all these high-profile arrests and investigations and imprisonments, and people from every side of the political spectrum have been saying, oh, it's being weaponized by this one, you're picking on me, it's not, you know, it's corrupt, it's et cetera, et cetera. Do you see it as an independent entity, as justice being free from corruption, from pressure, from interference? Is it functioning as well as we could expect, do you think, at the moment?
I mean, it's been now, what, 10 years since the beginning of the process? And I think it's functioned miraculously well.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's just compared to a number of other reform countries, and think about how deep this reform went down.
Yeah.
I mean, and how many people had to leave the system, and how many people had to join the system, and only this replacement, if you wish, is difficult enough. But when you look at the cases, I'm not following that in detail.
Yes.
Obviously, I'm doing other things now.
Of course.
But when you look at cases, it seems pretty even in terms of the political dispersion. So this is really for those who are supposed to look at it from the professional point of view, to say how is it, and the European Union negotiations will look into it in very, very many details. You can trust me, and also in the end for the people of Albania. And for me, their trust will be the judge of how well this has been done.
I want to go back to what you said about having that really close relationship with the US Embassy at the time. It was Donald Liu. I remember seeing the picture of you two hugging in Parliament when there was the vote on the reform. And I wondered, you know, obviously you needed to have this sort of united front. Because it was difficult. As you said, there were people trying to slow down the process and interfere, and people who didn't have faith in it. But what do you think was the biggest obstacle you encountered? Was it political will? Was it interference? Was it lack of resources? Was it culture? Was it sort of a lack of understanding? What was it for you that was the biggest challenge in terms of these reforms?
For me personally, the biggest challenge was to pull the people out of this fear to hope, because this was of essence. Without the political pressure that I think in the end everybody felt, that came from constant, unwavering support from voters.
Yes, yeah.
They understood that this has to go through. And that for me was the biggest challenge. Everything else, I would say, you can expect. Some of it went to the extreme, but fine. So, you know, it's nothing. There was nothing that we could not deal with. And this partnership with the US was of essence. And I cannot tell you how many people have put massive amount of work and hours into coming up with something that was very unique, and simply didn't have, we couldn't risk it to fail.
No.
So there was a lot of work. It also unfortunately consumed time for some other things that could have additionally happened. And here, my only other regret was that I didn't have time enough to work on the land reform, or the ownership of land. I think it's a huge problem.
It's something that's going to really cause a lot of problems through the chapters negotiation process. For example, agriculture, environment.
Just in general, just the feeling of justice.
Yeah, of course.
Just the feeling of justice. You know, if you have people who have spent their life feeling that justice was not done to them, then you have a problem. So, but it was clear, it was obvious from everything that the justice reform and having a solid justice system was prerequisite for Albania to move where, in a very, I have to say, quick time has arrived now.
Now, I will say, during the vetting process, I was quite cynical. I saw the mess, the fallout. As I said, I actually had a case in the court at the time, and every judge that came was being dismissed or, resigning, and it was a nightmare, But now I think it's clear that things have progressed, things are different. I trust the system now, 90%, whereas before it was probably around 30%. But when Ilia Meta was arrested, you made headlines. Maybe you weren't realizing how many headlines you were going to make in Albania, because you wrote on social media that the justice reform was acting with all its force when this happened. This went quickly quite viral. Is this, I think some people interpreted it as, you saying, oh, this is what it was set up to do or whatever. What was your take on the reaction that you received to that? And did you mean specifically the arrest of Ilia Meta, or the fact that, the wheels of justice are turning and no politician is safe?
I mean, as you said, I didn't expect and I didn't think about it when I wrote it.
Welcome to Albania.